Hey guys, Schiavone here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am an online coach and personal trainer who specializes in helping men and women just like you to lose fat through flexible dieting and weight training. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the benefits and some of the drawbacks of tracking macros, which is flexible dieting. Now, counting macros is relatively simple and straightforward, but it can be a little bit confusing if you're new to it and you've never had any experience with it. So in this video, we're going to be giving you a step-by-step breakdown of exactly how to go about understanding and calculating and tracking your macros. So what are macronutrients? It's important to have an understanding of what they are first, and also to understand that different people with different goals are going to require different ratios between their carbohydrates, their protein, and their fat. So let's start with the much dreaded carbohydrate. Ooh, no carbs.
What a great honor to be able to introduce for the...
Carbohydrates include starches, sugars, and fibers. Now, most carbohydrates are broken down into glucose in the bloodstream and are used immediately for energy. The rest of it is usually broken down into glycogen, which is stored in your muscles and your liver, and is one of the principal sources of energy for your body and movement. Carbs provide you with 4 calories per gram and tend to make up the bulk, certainly, of the Western diet. Now, it's one of these really hotly debated macros as to how much you should have, but generally it'd be considered that you should be having somewhere around 45 to 65% of your daily intake coming from carbohydrates. Next up is fat. Again, the much feared and much bullied and misunderstood fat.
2, 3.
Now, fat is the most calorific of all the macros, giving you 9 calories per gram. Now, your body needs fat for many critical functions such as nutrient absorption, hormone production, and insulation and body temperature regulation. A typical macronutrient range for fat is going to be somewhere around about 20 to 35% of your calorie intake, but some people find that they do better on a higher fat intake, something such as the keto diet. That leads us to protein, the king of the macronutrients. Like carbohydrates, protein provides you with 4 calories per gram. And protein is important for things such as immune support, cell signaling functions, and of course the growth and repair of muscle tissue. Generally recommended government guidelines are that protein intake should be anywhere between 10 to 35%, but I would always urge to be on the higher side of that. I'd say 10 is not enough. More around the sort of 20 to 35% of your dietary intake of protein would be more optimal. Obviously, protein-rich things are such as meats, fish, dairy, eggs, nuts, and seeds. So now you have a brief idea of what macros are and what they're for, so your protein, your carbs, your fat. You need to now understand how to track them and how to calculate them. So the first step is figuring out and calculating your daily caloric requirement. Now, I'm not going to go into the detail of this in this video because there's lots of equations and things to look at, and it can get a little bit noisy just to do here in a video, because I've already written a blog post on this which will run you through it in full detail, exactly how to work out your calories and macros. So the link for that is in the description box below. I'll put it right at the top so it's easy for you guys to find. I would suggest after this video, go to that link. It'll give you everything you need to calculate your calories and macros. Then you'll have a full understanding. You can come back and watch this video again and carry on forward from there. So next you need to decide what is the ideal macronutrient breakdown for you. And this is going to be different for different people with different fitness goals and levels of activity. But we just need to go back and have a look at the ranges that I mentioned earlier in the video. Carbs, typically 45 to 65% of your daily intake. Fats, 20 to 35% of your daily intake. And protein, 20 to 35% of your daily intake. But just bear in mind that those specific recommendations might not fit your specific need. Athletes, bodybuilders, people who are much more physically active are going to need higher ratios of protein and probably higher ratios of carbohydrate in their diet. Also, if we're looking at the fat loss perspective, it's different again. You may want to have a higher protein, moderately higher fat, lower carbohydrate intake if you're wanting to lose fat. So now it's time to track your macro intake. The best way we can do that is with a smartphone app, such as MyFitnessPal, Logit, or My Macros. These apps are really user-friendly and they're designed for doing this specific task, so it makes it very easy. They often have very large databases of food already logged in them through the vast user community that they have. A lot of them also have a barcode scanner, which makes it super easy to just log with your phone exactly what you're eating, measure it all out, and then you'll be able to get your calories and your macros throughout the day. Very simple, just takes a little bit of time and practice to learn how to use it properly. But remember, the one thing with macro tracking we don't want to do is get super anal about hitting the numbers exactly. There's a margin of error on them, so we can have a range up and down. So you don't have to hit the numbers perfectly. You just want to be getting within the ballpark on a daily basis. So now we're going to look at the benefits of macro tracking. And the first major benefit is it's going to make you think about the quality of the food that you are eating and not just focusing on the caloric value of the food that you're eating. Perfect example would be if you had a bowl of sugary cereal versus a bowl of oats with some fruit and some seeds on top. Now they might have the exact same caloric value, but they could have wildly different macronutrient and micronutrient properties. So there are two very different foods that are going to react in your body two very different ways, despite having the same amount of calories. So macro tracking can often lead you to focus on more nutrient dense and healthier foods over less optimal food choices. However, the thing to be aware of is that unhealthy foods and sugary foods can still factor into your calories and macros with a flexible dieting approach. So you still have to be wary that you're making the right choices. The other main benefit is it's, for me, one of the best ways to lose weight. That's because it's setting you to, specific dietary recommendations that are built around you, your body, your training. And it can help you whether you're following a high protein or low carb or high fat approach, such as keto or paleo, for example. You can still do it as a macro tracking approach to a lot of different diets, but you're going to get a much better result when you're paying attention to the numbers. Plus, research has shown that tracking your calories and tracking your macros can actually help you with long-term adherence to a weight loss goal. Another benefit is that it may assist you with a specific goal. Now, if you have a specific sporting goal or you're an athlete, you're going to have a different macronutrient need to a regular everyday person. For example, anyone looking to build muscle is going to need a higher protein intake than normal. So it's important that they have an idea of actually how much they are getting day to day. And for an example, an athlete or a resistance trained athlete is going to need somewhere in the region of 1.4 grams per pound. That's like 3.2 grams per kilo of protein. How do you know if you're getting that much unless you have an idea of what you're eating? But admittedly, like every diet, macro tracking is not for everyone. It's great for people who like to adhere to quite a structured way of living and a structured way around doing their nutrition and their fitness. It's really good for people who want to understand the quality and quantity of the foods they're eating for specific sporting goals. And it's also really beneficial for people who want to follow particularly high protein or high fat diets. But like I said, it's not for everyone. Now, because macro tracking puts such an emphasis on weighing food and tracking what you're eating, it's not a particularly good approach for someone who has a history of or a pre-existing eating disorder. Focusing on food intake this intensely can lead to disordered eating patterns, specifically in people who've had or have issues around food and eating. And you also have to keep in mind that because we're tracking macros and calories, it can still allow you to eat poorly and reach your goals. So again, people need to be aware that you need to be making smart, healthy choices. If you're using it as an excuse to just be smashing donuts and Pop-Tarts all the time, you are not going to get the result you're looking for. This is not an excuse to eat junk food and whatever can fit in your mouth and whatever fits your macros. It's if it fits your macros, not if it fits your mouth. You should be aiming to be following a whole food diet rich in nutrients and high quality macros, good quality fats, complex carbohydrates that are going to fuel your brain, fuel your body and your training and give you the result that you want. Pop-Tarts and donuts, as much as we all love them, aren't gonna do that. When we first start counting macros, it is easy to be overwhelmed with it. However, if you just follow the steps I've lined out in this video, you will have success with it. Also, make sure you check out that blog post I mentioned earlier as well. Link is in the description. First, the most important step is calculating your calorie and macro intake, and then finding the correct ratio of the three that's going to work best for you depending on your goal. Then log your food intake to make sure that you're getting good, high quality food, healthy fats, complex carbohydrates, and good, lean, diverse sources of protein. And before you know it, it's gonna become natural as everything else you do day to day. And this, especially for fat loss, for me, for pretty much all my clients, is how we get success. All my clients do macro tracking, and I have pretty much 100% success rate on it. But speaking about fat loss, next video is going to be on where does fat go when you burn it? There's a lot of myths and misconceptions as to what happens to fat when we lose it. I'm going to tell you exactly how and where it goes in my next video. So guys, if you have enjoyed this video, as always, please feel free to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Also, feel free to go check out my Instagram at Schiavone PT. I post things up on there a couple of times a week, all on fat loss, health, fitness, everything else. Check out my Instagram stories too. While you're here on YouTube, feel free to check out these other YouTube videos that I have done for your entertainment and education. Thank you very much guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next video.